Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. My name is Jess Lisi. I am the Partnerships and Events Manager here at DASA, and today I'm excited to welcome you to the Bureaucracy Meets Innovation panel discussion in collaboration with Crusoe. We have 4 brilliant panelists from all corners of the public sector here to talk about their experiences. Before I introduce our panelists, I would like to say that feel free to put questions in the Q&A or chat feature. We will typically get to questions at the end, but we appreciate any inquiries you have. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our brilliant panelists for today. First up, we have Jeroen Schoutema, Scrum Master and DevOps Coach at Rijkswaterstaat. Rijkswaterstaat is involved with all aspects of highway traffic. So if the A10 is closed, maybe take your frustrations out of the panel. Next we have Harry Hussens at CIBG. He is the product manager in Nopunten and product manager data platform. And he will be giving some great not tips, but his experience on projects he's led with data platforms. CIBG is the ministry that is involved with health, sports, and works a lot with our healthcare sector. So we're excited to have him represented as well. Up next, we have Anouk Mott, director at Crusoe. Anouk is actually one of the authors of the white paper that inspired this panel, so we are really excited to have her perspective in. She is an experienced in consulting for the public sector, so we'd love to hear her war stories. And last but certainly not least, we have Andy Wyman. He is an experienced DevOps transformation leader and coach who works primarily with the public sector. And right now he's involved with some really interesting projects that we're excited for him to tell us more about. And that being said, let's dive in. So the topic of today focuses on product management in government and how this could inspire and lead to better, more efficiency, scalability, and more citizen-centered services. So Anouk, could you start off by explaining to our audience what is a product mindset and how it differs from what governments have already been doing or how they've been approaching their transformation?
Unmute button, of course. Yeah, product mindset is, I always define it as that you need to think in problems instead of solutions. So what you normally see in project management is that when it comes to the IV organization, that's how we call it in the Netherlands, or the IT organization in English, it's already a project. They want CMS, or they want a new ERP system, or they want a solution for the problem that is not always presented well when it is trickled down to the IV organization. And a product mindset is really helping into, okay, what problems are we fixing for our citizens and the companies that we have in the Netherlands? So I think that is the major shift in moving from a project mindset towards a product mindset in the public sector, I would say.
Yeah, excellent. I like how, you have that focus on how, put citizens at the center of the process, and how does this service, how does this, new transformation, how does it actually help the people we are meant to be helping? So I think it's a really fascinating way to look at these transformations. Jeroen, you are up next. Bureaucracy can oftentimes be synonymous with inefficiency, mainly due to various compliance requirements, stakeholders, and siloed departments. When implementing new ways of working or a new system, how do you typically approach these bureaucratic obstacles? What methods do you use, and how does maybe a product approach help bridge those gaps?
Yes, I absolutely recognize this bureaucracy. It often leads to slowness and frustration. That's absolutely true. Yeah, well, my approach is to start clarify about the why behind the change. When that is clear, everyone is involved and you create buy-in. After that, I will work in small iterative steps, quickly demonstrating value to the customer. And this reduces resistance and minimize risk. So that's my approach. There are some methods that I use. One of them is I recently started delivering a training to stakeholders, which
Oh,
included the section of the product mindset, which really helps. And another one is the early involvement, with compliance, security, and legal teams from the start. That also helped me. So we don't have any gateways at the end. And the third one is sometimes you need a little bit courage just to and take some action. I know there are rules, but yeah, in organizations like we are, you just have to need some courage and take action. Yeah,
no,
and
certainly.
yeah, absolutely. And the product oriented approach is really helpful. You work with cross functional teams, focused on the customer value, and take ownership of that. And yeah, you work in fast feedback loops, so that really helps. It breaks people out of the silos that we still have, but with the more product focus, you can solve that a little bit. And yeah, of course, you have a shared goal, and that's delivering value to the customer. So
Definitely. It's good to, we often find organizations will, and it's the same with security, it's the same with all of it. Compliance, security, all of it's kind of put in at the end. It's like, okay, we have our product, where does it fall into place, rather than, okay, how do we build that in from the beginning of the process? So I think and with that product approach, it really helps to get that kind of all centered from the start. So
yeah.
that's excellent. Um, Harry, you've directed a number of digital initiatives, such as the one-stop shop site and central information hub for all of your partners with the CIBG. What inspired those changes, and why did you choose a product management approach as opposed to other methods?
Yeah, well, like in previous already said, from the old days, you're focused on a siloed approach, product approach. And what we notice, everything we do in the execution, our work is to make sure that all legislation, every task CIBG has to do is based on legislation. And what you see in healthcare, there is so much different legislations where my section is the healthcare provider, so not the individuals, but the companies. And they have to meet up with a lot of registrations and whatsoever. And one of the big topics is always the administrative burden for them.
Yeah.
And what we said, okay, we made a vision on what does a healthcare provider has to do with us, and how can we make life for him as easy as possible with as little as possible administrative burden. So we try to have an approach from, we deliver a service, but instead having 4 counters where it has to go, or 4 websites, we just do one. And on the other hand, we have 2 types of customers. The one side is the healthcare provider who has to meet up legislation. On the other side, we have all the partners, our chain partners for supervision and enforcement, and they want to have data exchange, and they want to have an integrated view on all information we can deliver. So if we have 4 legislations, in the old days they had 4 interfaces, and now they have 1. And also, again, from the idea, what is our product? And our product is not legislation A, B, C separated, but one integrated set of information for those who needs and is able to have them. And for the healthcare provider, it's the same, but then on the different approach. So we really made a vision on healthcare providers from being one product instead of 4.
That's incredible. And I feel like this is a tale as old as time. Oftentimes, whether you're, a citizen trying to figure out, okay, I have all these different departments I have to go to. That's often different websites, different people you have to come in contact with, even with your actual stakeholders, more public entities. It's something that slows it down progress. It makes things inefficient. So I think that approach is so helpful to really get people, the information where it needs to go as fast as it can go. And also, I'm sure, frees up the people in CIBG to do more of the work that they, more implementation work, policy work, rather than having to field calls or, okay, this guy needs this information, I need to go to that guy to get it. And yeah.
Yeah, that's why we have a strong cooperation with colleagues in different departments, which have the responsibility for other legislation tasks. But we approach it as from one point of view and not from 4, and that helps.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. So now we're going to Andy. Andy, how do you build a roadmap towards transformation when working with the public sector? We have kind of these, you have this idea, maybe maybe someone else wants to do a one-stop shop or do this transformation. What's that road? How do you build that roadmap, and what are the considerations?
Yeah, so we all know that building a roadmap towards DevOps transformation or digital transformation within the governmental sector can be hard. So when we look at them, and you look at their IT, they have a lot of legacy systems, and they need to hold themselves to strict regulations and laws, right? Like the other people also said in this panel. But we also know that when we work with governmental organizations, we face a different culture compared to the non-public sector, where it's more like goal-driven, result-driven, sometimes can also be seen more energetic.
Mm-hmm.
A strong difference, for example, with the commercial markets that I would like to clarify a little bit is non-public companies can be seen as slow, right? Of course, because of their processes and the policies that come from these regulations and laws. So a common pitfall, or let's say a habit of these organizations, is that they organize themselves around these regulations and laws, for example, with controls, extra quality checks, but also a lot of manual work, of course. And you also see that then also in the IT processes, but also in the business processes, if we can call it like that, because they would like to control risk reduction, for example, and also they would like not to have any compliance issues. So if we go back to answer your question, so when building a roadmap towards transformation, you need to make sure that management and those controlling roles are on board, of course, right? So when we look at creating these roadmaps, you need to make sure that not only management is on board, but also all these controlling roles. And those can be, those roles can be seen as a lot, right, within the governmental organizations, because, there are a lot of controlling roles, as I said. But you also need to make sure that you understand the systems, right? In the past, I've seen a lot of cases where a lot of new projects will be started, a lot of transformations will be started, right, from A to B and then to C, but then too few people are on board. And you also need to make sure that people do the operations, or people that really do work with the systems, with the processes, are on board as well. On the other hand, you need to have those knowledge about the systems, the processes, and of course the impact of the laws. So therefore, again, you need to make sure that those people are on board. On the other hand, you need to make sure that you're like a good organizer, right, in the end, and that you understand IT and DevOps and transformations. Mm-hmm. Also, you need to make sure that you also take care of the future of the roadmap. I think so when you have those people in the room, right, you get all those people in the room, you understand the IT processes, you understand the business processes. It can be a pitfall that you have like a tunnel vision, right, in the end. And you need to make sure that you have the long-term vision, the long-term goal of the organization. So in this part, the government also have it in place, right? Or at least you have it understandable for your people, but also for yourself, because law changes are there, regulations changes are there. And what you don't want is that you have like a roadmap and then suddenly you ask for approval right at the end, and then you hear a no, for example. Sometimes it happens, but then you need to organize yourself on it. But so those are my tips, to make sure that you have like a proper roadmap for transforming IT or digital solutions within the government.
Harry.
Yeah, in addition, what Andy has explained, that is what we did. We made, you could call it a roadmap, but we said we want to have we called it a vision on what does our customer want from us, and especially what doesn't he want. And then we try to work forward to that, or work backwards from that idea.
Yeah, no.
Nice.
Oh, I love this discussion.
I think it's a bit that how they did it in Estonia, right? If you read the white paper, you see how Estonia is one of the most digital countries in Europe, and how they have actually created products for the citizens using their problems at the core. And yes, legislation is important, but it's more tailored to what the citizens need. And I think that's the brilliant example of how they do it differently there than in the Netherlands. But you also have to know that in Estonia, the IV or IT organizations within the public is much smaller. So you don't have to deal with 200 to 1,500 people at the same time. So that is also an advantage.
No, definitely. The citizen-centered approach is so essential. And this looks similar when you consider other enterprises will call it a customer-centered approach, but in government, I think it has an even extra layer on, because your citizens come from all walks of life. You are also dealing, your clients are also enter other organizations. So whatever that looks like, you still need to be building with them in mind, them at the center. And as Harry said, you build backwards. You start with that vision and you continue to build back. And I think the product management is really great for that approach, especially dealing with those legacy systems. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I found really interesting nowadays is that we have AI.
Yes.
I mean, we cannot avoid that topic right now. I mean, it's coming, and it's bringing speed and acceleration to everything that we do. So I think that's also a topic that I would like to know more from you guys as well. So if you look at the Estonian use case in the white paper, you see that they have the citizens at the center. I know from that case that they are a very small IT department, so you can move fast if you're small. And what I would like to investigate together here is, how can we use AI with building products in the government? Is there already appetite for it? Is it accelerating the product-oriented mindset within the public sector, as you can see, or is it still been pushed away because it's scary? Just a question to the other panelists.
Yeah. We'll go with Andy first. First one to raise his hand.
Yeah, so we've done some experience in the past. So let's say in the last 10 months, the government or organization, where we would like to try to apply AI for DevOps purposes, so for software development. But at that case, we failed. Let's call it like that, or we learned from it. Because in the end, there's a lot of regulation again, right? It's all about data, and you need to make sure that AI is also attached to not only the developer's workspace, but also to your pipeline and to the databases in the end, right? So at the experiment that we've done, we weren't that successful. Let's call it like that. But I would like to learn more if there are any other stories, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, Harry, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, one of the problems is, I don't know if everyone is aware of the big issues that is, especially in the Netherlands, without using AI or stuff like AI, especially in the tax office in the last years, with all the problems people encountered. So it was a wrong way of using it, let's say, or in the end it turned out. And that makes that it's very difficult for us to use it, because for everything you have to make sure that where we have to watch is that if we have the possibility to make some decisions completely system driven or system made, but we're not supposed to. I wouldn't say not allowed to, but the idea is that we always have a final human check. If you use AI to make decisions or decision trees or whatsoever, but still there needs to be the human check. So that makes it difficult to go ahead quickly. But on the other hand, it is also some kind of, let's say, protection for citizens, that they're not completely handed out to AI. So it's always a thin balance where you're walking on a thin line.
Yeah, that's a really great point. It brings up some of the obstacles that can be faced with AI, such as making sure you're compliant with, privacy regulations, security. No matter what, as much as we want to automate, you have to have at least that human aspect to make sure, all right, let's see, let's make sure everything is still going on, and always having those touch points with the end user. And it's also, changing so rapidly. And with government, if there's new regulations that come up, this is kind of going back to your point on the roadmap, Andy. If a new administration comes in and you are, halfway through a project, and now they've completely changed up their approach on AI and their regulations. Now, all right, how do we manage that? And it's, having that roadmap is good to keep up with that rapid
and it's also fun to see that you see a lot of eagerness right around this topic. So a lot of people are open for it, would like to apply it. So yeah, at the government organization that I'm helping out now, you see definitely some opportunities still to they still see some value in experimenting with AI. But yeah, then coming back to the roadmap, you need to make sure that it's all small enough, right? Those experiments and epics before you make it too big, and then the whole roadmap might be shifting. But yeah, if you keep it small, then that's what we did, by the way. In this DevOps transformation regarding this topic of AI, we created a small experiment in it of 4 weeks, and then cross-checked it with the environment, so with different kind of roles, right? That check those laws, etc. And then we said, okay, we need to bring it back into let's say put it back on the backlog, learn from it, and then bring it back later. So it was fun to see.
Excellent. And I wanted to go back to something, a concept you brought up, Andy, and I'm gonna give this question actually to Jeroen. One aspect we're looking at, especially when bringing in new technology, is the issue of legacy systems, these brown fields that already have something in place, that have probably outlived most of us, at least me, in some regards. And Jeroen, how have you navigated these brownfields, especially as new policy is constantly putting pressure and urgency on, new capabilities, and how does that, product mindset maybe help in overcoming those issues?
Oh yes, legacy systems. Yeah, great topic. All right. Those systems often are really a big challenge for government institutions. Yes, because those systems often have years of proven functionality. Let's be honest, but lack the flexibility to quickly adapt to new policy requirements or technical innovations. So my approach begins with mapping out the weakness and the limitations of the legacy systems. I do this working closely with the teams because they have the knowledge. Yes, so They understand where the pain points are, and yeah, instead of replacing everything at once, I look for small improvements rather than opting for the big bang solution. Yes, and the product-oriented mindset offers a solution, I think, to these obstacles by helping shift the focus from technical solutions to more user needs and value. And the product teams work not only on technical improvements, but also on understanding the impact of each change and the user experience, of course. And yeah, this helps to improve the effectiveness of and ensure the solutions truly contribute to the government agencies and objectives. So yeah, that's a little bit my approach to the legacy systems. But yeah, I have to be honest, they are a real challenge to us. Absolutely.
Do you actually maybe have an example of one you've had to work on? You know, maybe some of the newer technology coming up, how that's had to the challenges you've had to face with that.
Yeah. I have more examples, I think, but I use that approach of what I just mentioned. So, yeah, what I also say, we have to solve this. Yes. So the normal behavior is put it lower on the backlog, but I want it up in the backlog. But that's of course a challenge, and they say, okay, I understand you want to solve it, but first we have to see you for plan B and make it ready for this movement. But yeah, sometimes I'm pushing a little bit on that to solve this, because it's so easy to put it low on the product backlog, and then we don't touch those systems, and the problem is going to be bigger. Yes.
Right, exactly. Actually, in one of our previous panel we just did last week, the panelists gave this great quote that was bad news doesn't smell better with time.
Great, that's a great one.
And I feel like it's the same thing here. It's like, look, it can be a lot of work to tackle, sometimes completely changing these systems that are integrated with other systems that also need to be changed.
Yeah.
But it's something you just have to do if you want to be able to integrate. And I mean, I'm sure when it comes to traffic management, highway maintenance, there's so much that's constantly changing. Of course, I could do with a few less speed cameras, but I'll save that for another conversation. Harry, yes.
Yeah, one of the approaches, what we did in the last years, is knowing that our system especially is from 2013 or something when we started, and from the beginning we tried to work in a modular way of designing. So if you have within 2 or 3 years the world can be completely different. And by trying to work as modular as possible, so loosely coupled system modules and not one big integrated system, made for us it possible that you can easily adapt some new systems, and that your legacy isn't, if you have to change something, you can change a small part. So like in a house, you can renovate your kitchen and the rest of the house has not a direct impact, let's say. So we try to work modular from the beginning, and now we're in the process of redesigning the system. And some parts we can keep using because we developed them 2 years ago as an additional add-on and with a loosely coupled interface. So yeah, that will help to minimize your legacy.
That's a great point, Harry, because I think some of the concerns people have, you pointed out there, oh, well, if we start doing this now, I mean, the tech is going to be different in 2 years anyway, so we can't even predict that. But if you have that foundation, you can still use those parts you've just renovated. as
Well,
any other parts.
yeah, but big example is we had to in 2019 from the Dutch Parliament came that we should make a public website where every citizen can do some information digging. And then we said, okay, we build it completely new. We have a web service where you can get the information. So we build a second system, which it's just coupled with an interface, and that's it. And it looks like one, but technically there are two. And this website we can still use. We don't have to make it new, but our old interface will be completely new. So that's how we try to approach it, and always from a perspective, what is our product and what do we have to do with that product?
Yeah, exactly. That actually brings quick question that just popped in my head while looking at, having to change, especially trying to change systems rapidly. I don't know if this would have been more your department, Harry, so stop me, if I'm off basis, but during COVID-19, that emergency caused governments to have to react very fast and change systems very rapidly, especially information systems on health, on helping these health hospitals and all these healthcare providers had to get information from the government. Did you have to do a lot with that? And how was it when you had something that was, an external force really having to push a quick change?
In the beginning, there was a huge need. There was panic and a huge need on all the supply of masks, protecting clothes, whatsoever. So people were buying and buying and buying stuff, and the government didn't know how much stuff was lying around.
Yeah.
And then they had a task force which had to set up a system to give inside information in how much stuff is lying around and how much money is involved. And then after the first shock, then CBG was asked to take it over. And so that was in the beginning the basis of our data platform. So we said if we want to give them insight, and yeah, now in the last year we had to shut it down in a way of that all the information and all the dashboards we produced in those time is now secured. So if they come back from the politic discussion, how did we do it in those years, we can reproduce the information, but it's that information. There is not coming new information, but we had to make sure that we have a good archive that's secured and that we can access it anytime so far. But we had to deal, we came in later. But it pushed us and it made it possible for us to develop our data platform much more quicker than we had planned originally.
That's fascinating. Yeah. And another great kind of example of what governments have to face in crisis situations that maybe enterprises don't have to as much. No, yeah.
Never waste a good crisis.
I like
Indeed.
that one.
It's not mine. It's Churchill, I guess.
I'm currently advising the organization that everybody knows from television during Corona. So, and they are still recovering from it. And to speed up things there as well, because you never know when a new pandemic hits us and then they will be in the same situation. So I'm helping them to use a product mindset and then looking into what is actually needed in a new crisis, and that's very unknown because you never know what it would be. So we are also building a data platform there, and what we are now trying to do is because they have so much data, because it's by definition it's a research institute. So they have a lot of researchers and they have a lot of data, also external data, internal data, very secret data, because nobody could know during COVID where the samples of the virus are, or all this information was there available. But now currently we're trying to see if AI can help speed up the implementation of the data platform itself.
Mhm.
And so also, like what Andy told us, the developers working with AI as a tool to speed up the development work, and at the same time also infusing AI into the pipelines to get the data quicker and get the data automated, so that there's no human needed anymore to clean the data, transform the data. And of course, human in the loop is a very important thing there, because you always need to have a human check if it's still correct.
Mhm.
But we are looking into it right now to see if that can be helpful.
May I have a question on that, Anouk? I guess you're talking about RIVM,
Yes.
if I'm correct. But how do you, if you say we have to make a data platform, I know that the situation with researchers and going on, but how did you then incorporate a product view? Because you have to, at some point, you need to know which basic needs the data platform has to fulfill and what the really need of the customers is. And is it the public? Is it the institution? Is it the researchers? So did you already check out, okay, our customers are, or our users, let's say, it's not so much customers, but users, and that you have a complete product view on it? Or did you say, okay, we know we need a data platform?
You know, everything starts the other way around in government. So it started with the project mindset, saying after Corona, we have these projects that we want, we need a data platform. And that was getting so big and complex and complicated that we scaled it down and said, okay, what's the actual problem that we're trying to solve here? So that's how I put the product mindset into the advisory that we do, to make sure that we are solving problems that the actual researchers or the actual researchers,
Users.
but also labs that they have can use, and they all have different needs. So it's not going to be one data platform. It's going to be multiple, because there's multiple needs in the end. But we are really looking into what is there already available. What are the user journeys? So what is the user journey of a researcher or people that working in labs? How do they get the data? And can we speed up or accelerate this data transformation with AI?
I think that the idea that you say, okay, what's the problem? And you use the problem-based view. And then, because that's the point what I was trying to make, is that if you're going to work with one data platform, knowing the RIVM, there is a big difference between labs, researchers, and let's say end users or politicians or policymakers.
Exactly.
So the one size fits all data platform is only in the fundament, and the second layer, you need different approaches. That's what I was aiming at.
Exactly. We're also now rebranding it to a data ecosystem for RIVM, because it's not one data platform.
Excellent. And actually, Anouk, I wanted to kind of, you know, one of the questions we have for you plays really well into that, because you are changing a system here. And with changing a system, of course, you know, changing the technology is a massive feat, but really it's about changing the culture and changing the mindset to be able to embrace a digital first approach. So what are the biggest challenges you've encountered in changing organizational mindsets to embrace that digital first or even AI approach?
That actually sits within the IT organization itself, because the researchers are already using our AI to do their research currently. So they are. It's very normal for a researcher to set up a whole environment himself and then So they have, for every researcher, almost they have their own kind of data platform where they transfer data to retransfer via email. So they are really self-starters. So it's not much about, I don't know the word in English, but in Dutch it's called ontzorgen. We really need to ontzorgen to make sure that the researchers can do their research quicker, better, but with the same tools. So that's why AI is very important, because they're already used to that. It's more getting the IT organization to understand that you need a product mindset, and you need to level up yourself to how the researchers do their work already.
Interesting. Yeah. I know there's, because you have another element in there of in that organizations you have experts and then you have IT experts, and you have to leverage both the expertise, whether you're a policy expert or science expert in science and health. So there's a lot of that cultural shift has to be very fluid and being like, okay, what do I need to learn, and how can I, in my capabilities, what gaps in knowledge do I have? So excellent. I haven't heard from Andy in a while, so I'm going to move some questions around, and I want to see, Andy, when implementing a new digital initiative, how do you leverage data to balance the needs of constituents or clients, as well as the needs of different departments, IT, other stakeholders, and how does product management help with this?
Yeah, it's a good question. So usually when I organize DevOps or digital transformations, also within the governance, I'm used to use data not only from IT, but also from the business side. And then the business side within governments is of course pretty big, right? You need to take care of all the departments, especially when you're looking at processes, right? A lot of changes, in my opinion, within government regarding IT or transformations are like literally process for going from A to Z, right? For let's say the citizens. So data needs to be used to drive not only the transformation, but also to steer on the goals of the organization. So a lot, what I also see is that a lot of government organizations are really good with documentation, writing business cases, comparing projects, right? But also in prioritizing work. So what I started to do, let's say 8 years ago, also with Tenet. I think we all know Tenet, perhaps. It's like a hybrid governmental organization. It takes care of our grid, right, or electricity grid in the Netherlands. When we started off with agile portfolio management over there, is that we started to use data coming from the organization to rank priorities on business value, but also time criticality to make sure that we were on time, right, regarding regulations, but also laws, for example. Because after a certain point of time, of course, you lose not only value, but also you might be fined, right, in the end as a government, or there are like other kinds of results that you wouldn't like to have, right? We also took care of another category, let's call it like that, and that was business enabling or operational excellence. And those were like for the long-term features, let's call it like that. So we used 3 sites of data, or 3 categories of data, where people would like to get to let's say to defend their business value. Was business value in the end, time criticality, business enabling, or opportunity enabling. Yeah. So to make sure that we have like the long-term data in there. So for that we used statistical data, but also more subjective data. Yeah. So yeah, it was pretty fun to use that. But also if you then look at right, you have a portfolio management, you have those prioritization done, then you need to make sure that you gather data around the performance, right, of the teams to make sure that you steer on time. But also you need to gather data from other partners, let's call it like that, right? So Tenet has a lot of other governmental organizations, but sometimes also private organizations. And what we did on the strategic level is also make sure that we use that data to make sure that the roadmap was continuously optimized. Of course, at the first of the start, we made sure that it was a little bit, the data pool was small, also the categories, but then also running the portfolio, we make sure that we continuously optimized the way we steered the portfolio in the end, right, towards business value, time criticality, and business enabling. In the end, those three were like always equal, and to make sure that we steered in an iterative way on the highest level of the portfolio management, we made use of a dashboard. So all parties that were involved, so not only within the tenant organization, but also their partners, could understand a little bit more about the why decisions were made, right? So that also made help with stakeholder management and all the kinds of communication, right? Because you can understand when you start with portfolio or prioritization, a lot of people would like to have that feature at the top or the epic or the project. But when you change or shift, right, also in developing and with the Agile Scrum methodology, of course, people also made their own decisions. You need to make sure that people are updated. So we made that use of data, and what we also used is that we used forecast data. So in the end, if we could see, right, teams dropping performance on some levels, we could forecast, for example, with also data solutions in the same kind of dashboard. How the roadmap would react, right, in the end for partners on again. Deadlines, but also value, and of course also the total delivery of the portfolio. So there was data everywhere, prioritization within the roadmap itself, but also an iterative way of steering it. And also showing it to the organization, literally on the highest level. So that was quite fun. The experiment took a while. It was nice to see. Try to do it again now at this governmental organization, and we start also small, of course.
Of course, iterative approach. My gosh, it's my language player. It is
Yes.
great. Seems to be a common theme of approaches of how best practices, it seems, starting small and kind of building off of that. Excellent.
And also not making sure that you only steer or prioritize on business value, because that can be seen as within government or organizations might be a little bit strange to steer on that, but also take into account time criticality really in a transparent way, and of course the impact on the operations. So for the citizens. So we use those three.
Excellent. Great. Moving on to the next question. So we talked a lot about how policy evolves, and you have to, cover, tech has, your service and the technology that supports those services has to evolve with that. But Harry, I want to know, how do you address the digital divide to ensure that citizens and healthcare providers can access and benefit those from government digital services? And how do you go about determining those needs in the first place and keeping up with their evolving needs, rather than just involving the evolving policy?
That's a tricky one. Like I said before, most of the stuff we do is always based on legislation. And one of the problems we have is when in the parliament there is something going on, and then they say, we have to take new legislation. And then it drops down, and in the end, CABG, or like, for instance, the tax office, has to make sure that it's being put in practice. And what we then notice is that the legal guys who make legislation or prepare legislation mostly have no idea on the impact in daily practice on either citizens or companies, which have then an obligation to fulfill with some governmental organizations. So what we try is always a bit working, trying to get, when we know there is some new development from policy kind, that we say, let us be involved, take us involved, because we know what in the end the citizens or the companies encounter when they have to fulfill it. For instance, when new healthcare providers start, they have the obligation to fill in a questionnaire, like saying, and the idea is that we know that there is a new one to prevent fraud, one of it, and that they have to give in some information on what they do and when they want to start, how big they are, So supervision, the inspection can go and check, are you really doing what you said? This questionnaire was not public information, rated as not public. But in the end, every healthcare provider said, hey, we want to know some information from that. We need that, but we are not allowed to share it because it's not public. So now we are working in a repair and working backwards. So our ideas from our business, trying to be as early as possible involved in new developments around policies, so that we can talk with legislations and can say, hey, did you consider this? Because from practice, we know that in daily practice, people need that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just work around it or think of some stuff, but we're trying to work looking forward instead of repairing flaws, looking backwards. And that's tricky because legislation is always a long, and repairing legislation is always a long process. Takes time. But that is where we're moving. And one of the things we do is using our data and our insights to produce some dashboards that we can easily in an early stage put in information. Does not only say let us talk, but we can also give a basis why we say stuff. That's how we try to close that gap.
Yeah, you become also an advocate for your clients as well.
A bit, yes, but also for our own business, because if we're encountered or if we're involved very early, we can also have a better implementation of our view on the product. Sometimes we can't do what we want because there is a legal no-go.
Certainly. Nook, you wanted to quickly, you want to bounce off that?
Yeah, that's exactly the use case that Denmark has in the white paper, where they try to be try to be on the table when the legislation is made with the policymakers, instead of waiting until the policy is done and then try to implement it. Right? Is that correct, Heidi?
Yeah, that's what we are. Well, that is what we encountered, and it's very difficult. But we have our own legal persons, and then you have the legal persons on the ministry, and those two talk, but both have no real daily practice experience on what it means for the people where the legislation is made for. And it's but what is helpful is that we are able to put our experiences and use data to show what the effect is.
Excellent. Thank you. I think that's a really good way to look at how to leverage that data more effectively. We have time for only a couple more questions, so I'll make these we'll go through them quick. Now we've been talking a lot about impact, and you know, the value we're giving to our constituents through these massive projects. Jeroen, how is your agency measuring the value and impact of its digital transformation efforts beyond traditional metrics like cost saving?
Yes, this is actually a really good question, because we had this question before. Yes, so what we did, I was start making use of evidence-based management, EBM framework. It's a framework that helps measure the impact of the value in a data-driven way. Yes. So instead of focusing on traditional metrics like cost savings, yes, EBM emphasizes more on gathering reliable data. And includes measuring or insights to evaluate the effectiveness that you want to know. Yes, and it has 4 dimensions. It's about looking at the product on the current value, unrealized value, time to market, and the availability to innovate. Yes, those 4 things, and by combining the hard data and the feedback of the stakeholders, we can just more have a complete picture of our products in creating value, and not just in terms of costs, you know. And that's really important, but also in terms of user satisfaction, innovation, and operational agility. So we make a start with this. We have to have some more experience with this framework, but till now we are quite happy about it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I think we're gonna have one last question, and then we'll try to get to the question from the audience that was sent in. But Anouk, I think to close up this panel, you made a really interesting projection for the future. So what do you see for the future? How does this mindset ultimately shift, and what does that look like in the age of AI?
Is there an AI for that to answer this question? No, I have absolutely no idea. But because I think we're currently at a pivotal point. You know, when internet came, I think we're in the same moment in history. So what I can see now is that I think agentic workflows, well, start with the use of AI is, I mean, just getting familiar with it and then see the opportunities that it can provide to organizations is impacting this mindset. And I don't know what it would be right now. I have no idea. Maybe Harry, Jeroen, or Andy have an idea, but yeah, I think we should watch and see.
Great answer. I think that sounds wonderful. So I'll give this question to anyone who wants it. Oh, Harry, yes.
Yeah, one of the problems in this topic is there is so much going on, and AI is going so rapidly. It's a jungle, and you don't know what the quality is, because with growing possibilities, there is a lot of let's say useless or not really serious. I don't know how to say it, but the pitfall is that you just use AI without an AI. If you don't have proper data under it, the result is bad.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful that you, if you use AI, in what way also that you really make sure that the outcome is reliable and trustworthy. And there is a lot of wrong influence possible. So it's very tricky because it's going so quickly. We as human people and company are hardly able to speed up with all the developments.
Mhm.
And then you have legislation. So if it's China, you're not allowed to use it. If it's US or Trump, it's not allowed to use it, and what so on. So it's very difficult.
Certainly. Anouk, you want to bounce off of that?
Yeah, I want to add to your story, Harry. I think what I said in the beginning, it still needs to fix a problem.
Yeah.
Right. So we still, I mean, using AI for the purpose of using AI is nonsense, I would say, like you're saying. It just should fix the problem. And then still we as people still need to understand what is the problem that we're trying to solve. And I think that keeps standing.
Yeah, and if you understand really the problem you solve, then you can make better judgment whether AI is an instrument which can help or support or is useless. But in the end, common sense is still very important to use.
I think that's a great way to wrap it up, is or at least wrap up this part. I do want to get to the question from the audience. But yeah, common sense. That's really what it boils down to. So this I'll give to anyone. What biggest achievements did you experience in having product teams in place, and how is the organization now benefiting? This is from anonymous attendee, which I hope there's some.
Could you repeat it?
Of course, yes. What biggest achievements did you experience in having product teams in place, and how is the organization now benefiting?
Yeah, from our perspective, like I said, when we make a vision on it, and we approached our service we have to offer, and it's a let's say for some of our customers, the healthcare provider, it's a mandatory service, so they have to do it. It's obliged. That's what I would say. It's not mandatory, but obliged. And by not approaching it from 4 different legislations, but one integrated view on a one-stop shop, we benefit because we have only one website and not 4. It's an integrated, and the customers have only one counter where to go, or one interface which they can connect. And have an integrated approach from different legislations and combining that and trying to make it a one point. And we benefit because our costs are lower. Like I said, if you only have to maintain one website, it's much more easier than to have 4.
Yeah.
And for customers, they have a more integrated way of servicing them. But it's only our experience and our specific type of business.
Yeah, exactly. Andy, you had your hand raised. Did you want to add on to that?
Yeah. So lately we're running a project, right, with rebuilding literally a business process. It's around uitkeringen, let's call it like that, social security. And what we did over there is we created 4 product teams, and those are like, we are familiar, right, within the government organization. But what happened as well, we're creating those, we also connected them to literally the end users, right? And the end users are like the people that are, it's like a customer services organization then in the end, right? And what we learned from there is that when we connected those teams to the product teams, we learned a lot more than just looking at it from a business case perspective or from a project perspective. We learned that, for example, that they were using a lot of screens, all systems as well, and that the assumptions that we made, right, in the solutions itself and the processes was sometimes could be better in the end, right, also for them. So with that said, we reduced a lot of waste in there, not only for the government organization within the process, it's still small, but also for the end users in state. So so the employees can of course be faster, but also on the other hand, the people that are calling can be helped a lot faster, and they of course can be helped more. So good fun.
Good. I'll let final thoughts before we go. Jeroen, Anouk, do you have anything else you want to add on this?
Yeah, I can add something to answer this question also. Short answer, delivering value. To be sure, I'm absolutely not against projects, but you need to know what kind of work you want to do, and you need to find the right approach to do the work. And we are a huge organization which is project minded. But now we have also approached the product approach, and it helps us with really complex stuff to use this product mindset. And this gave us a really chance to deliver value to our users and customers. So yeah, I'm really happy with that.
Excellent. Any final words, Anouk?
No, I think everything has been said.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank our panelists sincerely. Your stories and your insights were really valuable. I want to thank our audience for joining us for today as well. I hope this panel got to shed some light on, best practices in digital transformation for the public sector, particularly demystifying this product management approach and how product management has been able to enable faster, more citizen-centered and scalable solutions that can deliver that long-term value, better user experience, and adaptability through constantly changing times. So thank you all so much for your time. Thank you to our panelists again, and go enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.